States and the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau.
Thank you all very much. I very much appreciate. We're here with a man who has become a friend of mine, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Mrs. Trudeau. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we are discussing many things, including NAFTA, but we have discussions scheduled for quite a few subjects. And I think we both look very much forward. And I want to just tell you, Justin, great honor to have you both with us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great to be back here in the Oval Office. As the President said, a lot of things to discuss. We have an incredibly close relationship at two countries that are interwoven in our economies, in our cultures, in our peoples. But we have a good partnership, and there's always ways to improve it, always issues we need to talk through, and that's why having an ongoing constructive relationship between the President and the Prime Minister is really important, and I'm glad to be able to meet with you here again today. Merci beaucoup.
L'ambiance est bonne, M. Trudeau?
Toujours bien de se rencontrer avec des alliés et des amis.
Mr. President, is NAFTA dead?
We'll see what happens. We have a tough negotiation, and it's something that you will know in the not-too-distant future. But we are going to be discussing NAFTA, and we'll be discussing defense, because we have a great, these are truly great and original allies, and mutual defense is very important. And I guess we'll also be discussing mutual offense, which people don't mention too often, but offense is part of defense. So we have many things to talk about, but NAFTA will certainly be a big factor today. Okay?
Do you want to increase the nuclear arsenal?
No, I never discussed increasing it. I want it in perfect shape. That was just fake news by NBC, which gives a lot of fake news lately. No, I never discussed. I think somebody said I want 10 times the nuclear weapons that we have right now. Right now we have so many nuclear weapons. I want them in perfect condition, perfect shape. That's the only thing I've ever discussed. General Mattis put out a statement, or is putting out a statement, saying that that was fake news, that it was just mentioned that way. And it's frankly disgusting the way the press is able to write whatever they want to write. And people should look into it. No, I want to have absolutely perfectly maintained, which we are in the process of doing, nuclear force. But when they said I want 10 times what we have right now, it's totally unnecessary, believe me, because I know what we have right now.
You want no increase whatsoever? You're happy with it?
We won't need an increase, but I want modernization and I want total rehabilitation. It's got to be in tip-top shape.
Mr. Trump, you said that NAFTA just needed some little tweaks. What changed?
Well, I don't think anything changed. We're negotiating a NAFTA deal. It's time after all of these years, and we'll see what happens. It's possible we won't be able to make a deal, and it's possible that we will. We have a great personal relationship, and we have a relationship now as two countries, I think that's as close as ever. But we'll see if we can do the kind of changes that we need. We have to protect our workers, and in all fairness, the Prime Minister wants to protect Canada and his people also. So we'll see what happens with NAFTA. But I've been opposed to NAFTA for a long time in terms of the fairness of NAFTA. I said we'll renegotiate. And I think Justin understands this. If we can't make a deal, it'll be terminated, and that'll be fun. They're going to do well, we're going to do well. But maybe that won't be necessary. But it has to be fair to both countries.
Mr. President, do you think there should be limits on what the press should write?
No, the press should speak more honestly. I've seen tremendously dishonest press. It's not even a question of distortion, like the question that was just asked before about 10 times the nuclear capability. I know the capability that we have, believe me, and it is awesome. It is massive. And so when they make up stories like that, that's just made up. And the generals will tell you that. And then they have their sources that don't exist. In my opinion, they don't exist. They make up the sources. There are no sources. Any other question? We'll decide over the next fairly short period of time, but I think it's going to work out very well for both countries and Mexico.
What's your thinking on the Iran deal?
You're going to see very soon. We're going to be announcing that very shortly.
If you can't make a deal with Mexico, would you still want free trade with Canada?
What?
If you can't reach a deal with Mexico, could you envision still having free trade with Canada?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. It's possible we won't be able to reach a deal with one or the other. But in the meantime, we'll make a deal with one. But I think we have a chance to do something very creative that's good for Canada, Mexico, and the United
So
States.
do you want to see
How
how
was
to
your-
survive?
How was your lunch with Secretary Tillerson?
Very good.
Full confidence?
You mean last week?
Yeah, do you have-
John, you're so far behind the times. You mean today or last week? Because today I didn't have lunch with him. No, I had a lunch last week, and we had a very good lunch. We have a very good relationship. The press really doesn't understand that, but that's okay. We actually have a very good relationship. What else? I think I have a little bit different attitude on North Korea than other people might have. And I listen to everybody, but ultimately, my attitude is the one that matters, isn't it? That's the way it works. That's the way the system is. But I think I might have a somewhat different attitude and a different way than other people. I think perhaps I feel stronger and tougher on that subject than other people. But I listen to everybody, and ultimately, I will do what's right for the United States and really what's right for the world, because that's really a world problem. That's beyond just the United States. That's a world problem, and it's a problem that has to be solved. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
If NAFTA doesn't work out, would
Thank
you
you.
negotiate with both countries individually? If NAFTA doesn't work out,
I
can
would.
you see a deal with each individual country?
Yes, I would see that, yes.
Thank you. John, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everyone. Please head to the exit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's go to our senior White House correspondent, Jeff Zeleny, who was listening just as closely as I know I was. And so I heard really just deny when it came to that report out from NBC this morning, alleging that it was President Trump who over the summer said he wanted to increase the U.S.'s nuclear arsenal some tenfold. And without a doubt, the president said no.
That's right, Brooke. He did say that. He was denying dismissing that NBC report. We know, though, that President Trump, during his campaign and during his transition, talked frequently about modernizing and expanding the nuclear weapons arsenal. But let's set that aside for 1 second, Brooke. I think the most significant thing came near the end there when he was asked by the Pool reporter about his lunch with the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. The president said he had lunch with him last week. Well, the White House told us it was yesterday, so we will check on that to see if he misspoke. But regardless of when it was, he said that, look, he gets along with him fine, but then went on to say we have different attitudes on North Korea. So openly saying that he has different attitudes on North Korea, went on to say that ultimately it's my decision, my attitude is what matters. He takes a tougher view. So, Brooke, as I was listening to that, I was seeing play out in real time what the president has tweeted as well, that he indeed does have a different view than his Secretary of State, the top diplomat of course here, and they have been going sort of back and forth about North Korea. So that would seem to suggest that the differences between the president and the Secretary of State have not been resolved, at least in terms of North Korea. But back to the nuclear weapons situation, which of course is part of the same thing here. We're talking about a nuclear threat and the nuclear capability. The president repeatedly dismissed that NBC News report. He said he is not interested in expanding. Brooke, the reason that is sort of inflamed conversations here, because NBC has reported that that is when Secretary Tillerson described the president to others in a derogatory fashion about the nuclear conversation. The White House has denied that. The president said not true. But interesting that they were seeing that from the president today. But again, the conversation at the end about Secretary of State Tillerson and not being tough enough on North Korea stands out to me, Brooke.
I think that is an excellent point. I've got Jeffrey Lewis, who's been good enough to hang out. Let me ask you about that. I mean, there's been all this reporting on how, and I shouldn't say just reporting, it's been the president tweeting, and now the president telling the press pool there that he and the Secretary of State see North Korea very differently. How much of a problem is that?
I mean, I think it's an enormous problem. I know that people imagine that you can do a kind of good cop, bad cop routine, but the reality is getting the North Koreans to the table requires being able to credibly talk to them. And if the Secretary of State has a reputation as saying one thing and the president just, appears on Twitter to take it away, then if you're the North Koreans, why do you even bother?
Senator Corker telling the New York Times it is not a good cop, bad cop routine, even though to many it appears that way. When you also listen to the president talking about, in his way, rebuking the reporting that he wanted to increase the nuclear arsenal here in the U.S., he also then went on to say, no, it's awesome and in tip-top shape. What does tip-top shape mean to you? You're the expert.
Well, I have no idea. I mean, earlier in the year, he referred to Russia's nuclear arsenal.
He wants it to be tip-top.
He said it was tippy-top, and he wanted a tippy-top one, too. I think it's pretty tippy-top. You know, the way I look at it is, we've heard for years people say there are problems in the U.S. nuclear arsenal, and I think the simplest way to answer that question is to ask any general who has ever been, or any admiral who's ever been responsible for U.S. nuclear forces, would you switch with the Russians? It's been asked a number of times, and the answer is always no. So I think it's tippy-top.
Tippy-top when we're talking about nuclear arsenal. To you, sir, covering the media, hearing the president say it is frankly disgusting the press is able to write whatever it wants to write. Is he calling the press disgusting?
I believe he is, and the idea of a free press disgusting. Brooke, we've heard a lot of anti-media attacks from this president, but this one is one of the worst. And I don't want to stoop to his low level and say it's frankly disgusting that he has a profound disregard for the press. But I will say it's disappointing. You know, he benefits from the First Amendment and the press just like you and I do. He benefits from a free and fair news media. And yet we've seen in the past couple of weeks as the president gets more and more frustrated by how his own White House is performing or underperforming. He's lashing out at what he calls the fake news that's really real news. And he's looking for solutions, whether it's saying the Senate Intel Committee should investigate or saying there should be a fairness doctrine on TV or now today saying maybe we should look at the licenses for TV stations. It seems to me he's reaching for excuses, reaching for ways to punish the media for the stories he doesn't like. But I do want to just point out the NBC story that he says the sources were made up for. They had 3 sources that were in the room for the meeting where this talk happened about a 10-fold increase. Making up sources, you know, Brooke, that's the worst sin in journalism. It almost never happens. And when it does, those people get the heck out of the profession. They get fired. So no, NBC did not make up these sources today, even though the president thinks they did.
Brian, thank you.
Thanks.
Jeffrey, thank you. And Jeff Zeleny. Coming up here, let's talk more about Harvey Weinstein.